see, listening to a couple of pundits talking about Roy Hodgson's squad yesterday, and they were saying going forward, Gary Cahill's a good centre half, but what he needs is a long-term partner and enforcer next to him. And Roy's talking about form. He picked Harry Kane on form. I know Ryan's been injured for a while. Is he not that person in your eyes?
Well, we think so, but we're not the most big England squad. So, from our point of view, I mean, it's unfortunate for Ryan. In fairness, I think if he'd been fit and well and been playing regularly right up to this point, I think he must have come into Roy Hodgson's thinking. It would be crazy not to think that, because up to his injury, he was playing arguably as good as he's ever played in a Stoke shirt. So it's unfortunate that he got the injury when he did, because we all feel here, and I think most people's opinion outside these vicinities is that he's merited another look at least that. We're not saying put him in and play him week in and every international from this point onwards, but certainly he deserves another chance. He's had 20 odd minutes in a difficult situation where he was thrown on, and a lot of criticism was thrown his way unfairly, in my view, and he hasn't had a look in since. So given what he's produced, certainly since I've been here, I mean, he's arguably been the star performer in the last 18 months or so. So for him not to have another opportunity since the last time seems a little bit unfair, I would suggest.
Given the young backs that look like they're going to progress in the England side, I think Cahill's, not very old. They're inexperienced. I mean, do you think he'd be a good partner, Gary Cahill, Ryan Shawcross? Does that make sense to you, think?
Well, I can only go from what I've seen firsthand, and I think that's always the best basis to judge players and people. And as an individual, he's top draw. As a player, he's excellent in his role, and his ability in the position that he plays is unquestioned, I would suggest. So at the end of the day, I mean, it's just how England, in what direction England are going, whether or not they feel they need to progress people right through all age groups, and they feel that progression and that understanding of what's required, or their interpretation of what's required to be an international footballer, that needs to be learned as you go through the age group. So when you do come to senior level, then you're best prepared. So maybe that is the thinking at the moment, and it's more difficult for somebody who hasn't been through that process and been involved in international squads for a long time. It's difficult for them to break through again.
There seems to have been an edict coming out of the FA about players surrounding referees. Where are you on this? And have you spoken to your players? Would you rather your captain went up rather than, you see 4 or 5 people around the ref?
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be a little bit more prevalent just in recent weeks. I don't think it's a problem right through the league. I think you'll get periods where there'll be contentious issues and all of a sudden people react, and it's, as I said before, it's getting to the business end of the season. People are making decisions that have direct impact on results of games, so you can imagine the emotions run high. So this year maybe that's the reason it's more prevalent at the moment, but I think it's just one of those things that happens in sport, and you deal with it and you make sure that things are put in place that it doesn't escalate. But for the most part, I think it's not a problem that is really worrying to the extent that things have to be put in place to address it. I think it just needs to be managed, and I think it's more a consequence of where we are in the season. That's why it's been highlighted at this moment in time.
Where are you with the injuries after the West Brom game? I know Victor's on after.
Victor is the main doubt we've got. He's still struggling. Hasn't trained a great deal this week. We'll give him enough time. We'll see him in the morning. We'll test him in the morning, see how he is. But at the moment, he's the main doubt. The rest, we've got a number of niggles that we hope will just settle down. Obviously, Johnny Walters has had an operation on his cheekbone. He's got a mask that obviously will protect that, but the decision really will have to be John's in terms of how he feels. He's obviously gone under general anaesthetic, so that has an impact on you as well, stays in your system, and it needs time to flush out. So I need a conversation with him tomorrow to see how he feels, whether or not he feels ready to go, or at least play a part in the game. So there's a number of other players as well who are carrying knocks and niggles that we've got to be mindful of, because we don't want to go into the game with maybe 4 or 5 with question marks over them in terms of fitness, and lose 2 or 3 really early on in the game, because that had an impact last week. So we've got to be careful that the ones that pick are fresh and able to hopefully do the whole 90 minutes, because it's too risky going into a game with 4 or 5 that are carrying knocks and little niggles. I've only got 3 subs, so we don't leave ourselves too short.
Was that the clash with Dawson?
Yeah.
So is there any Phantom of the Opera jokes going around? Don't you joke with John Wall?
Well, he's only just had the mask on this morning, so there's time yet for a few jokes to be put forward, and I'm sure they will.
I think you know your answer when you ask him if he can play, don't you?
Well, yeah, I mean, anybody else, you would write them off, but John, knowing John as a player and individual, he's more likely to put his hand up. But we have to be cautious. There's no point him saying he's okay and he hasn't got the ability or the capacity to get over it as quickly as he would hope. But he's an honest guy, and I've had that conversation today. All I need is an honest answer from him, and that's exactly what I'll get tomorrow.
Last week, I don't know if it was fatigue coming towards the end of the season. It wasn't your Stoke team at it. How do you get that tomorrow?
Well, we were disappointed in our performance on the day. That can happen. We did have injuries that just affected the makeup of the team. We had to make early changes at half-time, and it affected what we produced, to be perfectly honest. But no excuses. We didn't perform on the day. In fairness, the guys, more often than not, when they have a poor performance and don't hit the levels that we know they're capable of, then almost immediately they bounce back very, very quickly, and that's what we did last time. You think back to the Blackburn Cup game. After that, we played really well and got really positive results immediately after that. So we want the same response. Fully expect to have a reaction tomorrow and get back on track, because we've still got things we want to achieve this year.
What is it you want to achieve? You went better last year, or
yeah, we want to do that. We've got an opportunity to get more points on the board, and there's a lot of individual things within those targets that we've set ourselves as well. So still a lot to play for.
And just finally, your opposite numbers, you've done well settling in halfway through a season like that. It's not the easiest thing, is it?
No, it's not easy. I think Alan is acknowledged as a very experienced manager at this level, and he's done a great job, and he seems happier within himself. I think that's a consequence of maybe the trials and tribulations he seems to have had to have gone through at his previous club. So I'm sure that projects itself to his team as well. So they're a good team, got good threats, got a good level of individual talent as well, which we'll have to deal with on the day. So it's not an easy game for us. Arguably, away from home, they're probably more dangerous on occasions, just because of the threat they've got on the break. So we have to be vigilant and make sure that we don't get caught out. But we're playing well at home again, which is encouraging for us. So we're looking forward to it.
Jack Butland has signed a new
Yes.
contract. How pleased are you to tie it down?
Delighted, yeah. Jack is arguably one of the top young keepers in the country, and to get him signed up was important for us. We see his future here, and obviously we're delighted that Jack sees his future here as well. So yeah, he's in a good place at the moment. I think he's grateful for our help in terms of continuing his development. It could have been very easy for him to come here and just stay as an understudy for 3-4 years or whatever. That was never the discussions that were had with Jack when he first came here. We've tried to keep his development path, tried to keep it going, and I think he's acknowledged that and appreciated that. So every year on, he's pressed ahead and he's improved. We'll continue to do that. At some time in the future, we see him obviously pushing to be the number one here, and he sees that himself. So we're really pleased that we've been able to get it done.
He's certainly a confident lad, as most goalkeepers with his ability should be. Were part of the discussions you will be number one sooner rather than later?
Well, I think we're very fortunate that our group of keepers is top level. Asmir Begovic is arguably one of the top keepers in the Premier League, and that's a bold statement, and it's absolutely true. So even though at the moment that there's an outstanding keeper ahead of Jack, I think they're just motivating each other, along with Thomas as well, who's been a great understudy for them both. And I think they push each other, and I think that's why their performance levels are high consistently, because there's competition and there's a challenge. And I think when you're a player, you need that to keep your focus and your drive to achieve. You need competition, you need people pushing you from behind or alongside you. So we're very fortunate in regard to the strength of our goalkeeping group. So obviously Jack recommitting to that group is a real positive for us.
Asmir, I think, comes out of contract soonish, and there are talks. Where are the talks with him?
I think we're leaving it till the summer. I think that's my understanding of it. As I said, we've got 9 games left, and I think rightly Asmir wants to focus on those games, and then any discussions will take part in the summer. We're quite comfortable with that. I think it's discussions that will be positive. We hope. And I know Asmir's very happy at the club and enjoying what's happening with the team at the moment. So there's a lot of things that a keeper of Asmir's standard and standing in the game, there's a lot of things that we're able to offer that tick a lot of boxes for Asmir. So I'm sure when the discussions take place in the summer, they'll hopefully be positive for us.
Just as a total outsider looking in, Jack signing, Asmir not yet having signed, and knowing Jack and how confident he is and how much he wants to be number one, the implication just seems to be, I could be completely wrong and out of order, but that Asmir's on his way out and Jack's on his way in.
You're completely wrong and out of order. Yeah, you're right. No, we're just trying to look after business. That's what we're doing. We've recontracted an outstanding young keeper. Our intention is to recontract Asmir Begovic as well. So that's where we are with it.
Great stuff. In the paper today, there is Peter Odemwingie talking about he'd like to be back before the end of the season. Is that realistic, or is that just him trying to push a little bit too hard?
No, we think there's an opportunity. I think prior to him having the slight setback that he had when we had to, well, the surgeon wanted to have a look at the knee again, so he had a slight operation. Obviously, they just looked at it, so we're able to understand why Peter up to that point was getting a reaction to the work that he was doing. Small procedure's been done, and it's really affected the knee in a really positive way. So Peter's way more positive about where he was maybe a month ago. So to that end, if you'd have asked me 4 or 5 weeks ago whether or not he had a chance of playing before the end of the season, I would have said probably not. But where he is now and where the knee is progressing and his positivity to his work, I think he's got a real opportunity to get games before the end of the season, which is great for him and us.
Mark, you talked about competition for places. Do you think that's helped you reach a new level this season and kick on from where you were and hopefully finish higher than been able to before? Yeah,
I think so. I think if you look at the group and the squad that we've got, for the most part they're all senior players, players who probably rightly so would feel they deserve a place in the 11. So given that, I think the strength of the group's been tested this year, certainly with the injuries that we have, and it's been proved to be resilient enough and at a good enough level for us not to miss key players and influential players too much. And I think that's credit to the guys that maybe been out of the team and had to bide their time and be patient. So we're fortunate in that respect that for the most part the senior group is really strong and at the level that we needed. Moving forward, maybe ideally we would like young players to come through the ranks to supplement maybe the bottom end of the 25 players that we work with, just to enable that succession of players to come through from the academy. That's the aim moving forward. At the moment we've got predominantly senior players, so with that it brings its own problems, because obviously when everybody is fit, then at times I have to disappoint people and leave senior players sometimes sat in the stand, so that's not ideal, but that's where we are at the moment, and thankfully so that's been able to sustain us this year when we've had injuries.
We talked last week about getting that elusive fourth win for you in the Premier League, and it didn't happen, but there's been a few anomaly results, obviously at Blackburn. When I spoke to Stephen Nzonzi, he said sometimes they found it difficult to maybe get their heads in the right place to face some of the lower sides in the league. Is that something that you definitely need to change going into next season?
Well, I don't think it's a prevalent problem. On occasions that's happened. I think when we've gone up against the so-called big teams in this league, then that takes care of itself. Maybe this season, if you look at the results, negative results we had, it would maybe bear out what you're implying, but it's not something that I feel is a problem that's prevalent with us. I think on occasions it can happen, but I think for the most part our focus is exactly the same whoever we go up against. I think we approach games in the same manner. Sometimes players as a group can underachieve, and I said after the game we can't afford to carry anybody or have too many that are not playing at the right level. When it happens, then it's more difficult for us to win games, and that's the same for other teams as well as for ourselves. So we just make sure that during a long course of the season we keep those anomalies and those one-off games to a minimum if we can.
Just one more for me. Last time Alan Pardew was here earlier in the season, he didn't have a very good time with the Newcastle fans, but how much resilience as a manager does it take? Obviously you've been at different clubs and had difficult times, but how do you kind of turn?
No, I thought it showed Alan in a great light. A lot of strength of character to come through those periods, and it wasn't just at the beginning of this season. He was there for 3 or 4 years, I think, and he had other periods where a lot of the focus was negative around his position, and he always came through that, and I think that shows a resilience in his character and a strength of purpose, so credit to him.
Mark, a lot of people were quite surprised to see Stephen Ireland on the bench last week, particularly after that gash on his leg. Is he ready to start?
Yeah, he's nearer to starting. He was on the bench, but I was hoping that really he was there as a safe gap, really. With the intention of the game was, well, if we could protect him somewhat, then and use other players, then that's what I was going to do. As it was, I wouldn't have been able to have the opportunity to play him anyway because of the injuries that we had. So in the end, it was for the best. He's been able to have another week's training, which was what he probably needed. We were a little bit low on numbers last weekend, so that's why he was on the bench. But this week he certainly comes into my thoughts.
Injuries to defenders. Philip Bolsheim hasn't played. Is he available again?
Philip's trained this week. He's available for selection. Last week he was close. He trained Thursday and Friday, if I recall, last week. Didn't feel as comfortable as he felt he needed to be, so that's why he missed out last week, but had the benefit of a week's training this week, so he's available.
And Ryan Shawcross was saying that he struggled a little bit last week.
Yeah, which is understandable. I mean, he's been out for 4 or 5 weeks, and first game back straight in. It was a difficult day for not only Ryan but any number of the players, so he's another that's benefited from another week's training, so he'll be better for that tomorrow.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Thank you.